The fluorescent lights hummed overhead in the small hearing room as Judge Judith Scheinlin, known to millions as Judge Judy, settled into her chair. This wasn't her usual television courtroom, but a formal court of inquiry convened under labor law provisions. Today, she would preside over a dispute that had sent ripples through the local manufacturing sector. "All rise," announced the clerk, though there were only a handful of people present. The petitioner Marcus Thompson, a factory worker who claimed wrongful termination, his union representative Sarah Chun, the respondent company's HR director Gerald Morrison, their legal counsel, and 2 assessors appointed to assist the judge with their technical expertise in industrial relations. Judge Judy adjusted her reading glasses and surveyed the room with her characteristic no-nonsense expression. At 78, she had spent decades cutting through legal nonsense, and today would be no different, even if the setting was more formal than her usual fare. "Mr. Thompson," she began, her voice carrying that familiar blend of authority and Brooklyn directness. "You're claiming you were fired without just cause after 15 years of service at Riverside Manufacturing. Tell me what happened, and don't waste my time with irrelevant details." Marcus Thompson stood, a man in his mid-40s with calloused hands and worry lines etched deep around his eyes. "Your Honor, I was dismissed on March 15th after I raised safety concerns about the new assembly line equipment. Management said I was insubordinate, but I was just trying to protect my co-workers." Judge Judy leaned forward. "Did you raise these concerns through proper channels? Did you go to your supervisor, file a written complaint, contact the safety committee?" "I did, Your Honor. I filed 3 separate reports with my immediate supervisor, Tom Bradley. When nothing was done, I brought it up during a team meeting. That's when Mr. Morrison here said I was disrupting operations and creating a hostile work environment." The judge turned her sharp gaze to Gerald Morrison. "Mr. Morrison, what's your version of events? And remember, I've been doing this long enough to smell dishonesty from across the room." Morrison shifted uncomfortably in his seat, straightening his tie. "Your Honor, Mr. Thompson wasn't terminated for raising safety concerns. We take workplace safety very seriously. He was let go because of a pattern of insubordination and refusal to follow direct orders from management." "Show me the documentation," Judge Judy demanded, extending her hand palm up in her signature gesture. "Personnel file, disciplinary notices, performance reviews. I want to see everything." The company's counsel slid a thick folder across the table. Judge Judy flipped through it methodically, her eyes scanning page after page. Occasionally, she would pause, reread something, then continue. The room fell into uncomfortable silence, broken only by the rustling of papers. After several minutes, she looked up. "This is interesting. I see one written warning from 2 years ago about being late 3 times in a month. Then nothing until suddenly, in the 2 weeks before his termination, there are 4 separate disciplinary notices. Mr. Morrison, do you think I'm stupid?" Morrison bristled. "Your Honor, I resent that implication." "I don't care what you resent," Judge Judy interrupted, her voice rising slightly. "What I care about is the truth. This looks like a classic case of building a paper trail after the fact. The dates on these documents might say they were created when you claim, but the pattern is suspicious." She turned to Sarah Chun, the union representative. "Ms. Chun, what evidence do you have regarding the safety concerns Mr. Thompson raised?" Sarah opened her own folder with practiced efficiency. "Your Honor, we have copies of the 3 safety reports Mr. Thompson filed, all properly logged with the company's safety management system. We also have testimony from 6 other workers who were present at the team meeting where Mr. Thompson raised the issue. Additionally, we have photographs of the equipment in question showing exposed wiring and missing safety guards." Judge Judy examined the photographs carefully, occasionally glancing at the assessors who nodded as they reviewed the images. "These photographs were taken when?" 2 days before Mr. Thompson's termination, Your Honor. After he was fired, the company suddenly fixed all the issues he had identified. "Convenient," Judge Judy remarked dryly. "Mr. Morrison, explain to me why these repairs were made immediately after Mr. Thompson was terminated if there wasn't actually a safety problem." Morrison cleared his throat. The repairs were already scheduled, Your Honor. The timing was coincidental. Coincidental, Judge Judy repeated, her skepticism evident. In my experience, which spans more than 50 years in law, coincidences in cases like these are about as common as unicorns. Let me ask you this. Did anyone from management inspect the equipment after Mr. Thompson's complaints? I believe so, yes. You believe so? Either someone did or someone didn't. Which is it? The company's legal counsel leaned over to whisper something to Morrison, who then answered more carefully. An inspection was conducted by our facilities manager. And where is the inspection report? Silence. Judge Judy removed her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. Let me tell you what I think happened here. Mr. Thompson, a loyal employee with 15 years of service and a clean record, noticed serious safety violations. He followed the proper procedure by reporting them to his supervisor. When nothing happened, he raised the issue publicly in a meeting. Management, embarrassed by being called out and worried about potential liability, decided it was easier to get rid of the whistleblower than fix the problem. They then created a hastily assembled paper trail to justify the termination and fixed the equipment to eliminate evidence. How am I doing so far? Morrison's face had gone pale. Your Honor, that's not. Save it. Judge Judy cut him off. I'm not finished. Under labor law, this court of inquiry exists precisely for cases like this. When there's a dispute about whether a termination was justified, especially when public safety or worker welfare is involved, we examine the facts thoroughly. And the facts here stink to high heaven. She turned to one of the assessors, a veteran labor relations expert. Mr. Patel, in your professional opinion, do the disciplinary actions taken against Mr. Thompson in the 2 weeks prior to his termination appear consistent with standard progressive discipline practices? The assessor shook his head. No, Your Honor. Standard practice would involve verbal warnings, written warnings with opportunities for correction, and escalating measures over a reasonable time period. The sudden accumulation of disciplinary notices appears retaliatory rather than corrective. Judge Judy nodded. That's what I thought. Ms. Rodriguez, she addressed the second assessor. Based on the photographs and descriptions provided, do you believe Mr. Thompson's safety concerns were legitimate? Absolutely, Your Honor. The violations visible in these photographs represent serious hazards that could result in electrical shock, equipment malfunction, or worker injury. Any reasonable employee would be concerned, and any responsible employer should have addressed them immediately. Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. Let me explain something to everyone in this room. Labor law isn't just about contracts and procedures. It's about human dignity and fairness. When someone works for a company for 15 years, shows up every day, does their job, they deserve to be treated with respect. They deserve to work in a safe environment. And they deserve not to be punished for speaking up when something's wrong. She pointed at Morrison. Your company may have thought it was clever to fire Mr. Thompson and paper over the evidence. But you forgot something important. Workers talk to each other. They document things. And unions exist precisely to protect employees from this kind of retaliation. Turning to Marcus Thompson, her expression softened slightly. Mr. Thompson, I've reviewed all the evidence, heard the testimony, and considered the assessor's opinions. This court of inquiry finds that your termination was unjust, retaliatory, and violated both the spirit and letter of labor law. The company's claim of insubordination is not supported by credible evidence, while the pattern of retaliation is clear and documented. She looked back at Morrison and the company's counsel. Here's what's going to happen. Riverside Manufacturing will immediately reinstate Mr. Thompson to his previous position with full back pay, benefits, and seniority for the entire period of his wrongful termination. Additionally, the company will pay compensation equal to 3 months' salary for the emotional distress and reputational harm caused by this unjust dismissal. The company's lawyer stood. Your Honor, we intend to appeal. You can appeal all you want, Judge Judy interrupted. But let me give you some free legal advice you'll lose. The evidence is overwhelming, and no appellate court is going to look kindly on a company that fires a worker for raising legitimate safety concerns. You'd be better off accepting this finding implementing proper safety protocols, and training your management team on how not to violate labor law. She turned her attention back to the full room. Furthermore, this court recommends that the relevant labor ministry conduct a comprehensive safety inspection of Riverside manufacturing within the next 30 days. If additional violations are found, appropriate penalties should be imposed. Worker safety isn't optional, and companies that treat it as an inconvenience need to face consequences. Judge Judy gathered her papers and stood. This inquiry is concluded. The clerk will prepare the formal findings and recommendations for distribution to all parties. Mr. Thompson, report to work Monday morning. Mr. Morrison, I suggest you and your company reflect seriously on how you treat your employees. Dismissed. As everyone filed out of the hearing room, Sarah Chun shook Marcus Thompson's hand vigorously. We did it, Marcus. Justice prevailed. Marcus nodded, his eyes glistening with emotion. 15 years. I thought they could just throw me away like garbage. I thought nobody would care. From behind them, Judge Judy's voice cut through. Mr. Thompson. He turned to see the judge gathering her materials. She looked at him directly, her stern expression giving way to something almost maternal. Somebody always cares. That's why we have courts, unions, and laws. Don't ever be afraid to speak up when something's wrong. That took courage, and your coworkers are safer because of it. Thank you, Your Honor, Marcus managed, his voice thick with gratitude. Don't thank me. Thank your union rep and those coworkers who backed up your story. And next time, take pictures earlier. She allowed herself a slight smile. Now go home to your family and tell them you'll be bringing home a paycheck again. As Marcus left the building, he felt something he hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Behind him, Judge Judy packed her briefcase, satisfied with another day's work. She had spent decades fighting for fairness, whether on television or in formal proceedings like this. The setting might change, but her commitment to justice never wavered. Back at Riverside Manufacturing, Gerald Morrison sat in his office, staring at the formal findings that had just been emailed to him. The company would comply, of course. They had no choice. But more than that, he found himself genuinely reflecting on what had happened. In trying to avoid short-term embarrassment and potential liability, they had created a much bigger problem and treated a good employee terribly in the process. He picked up his phone and called the facilities manager. Jim, I need you to conduct a comprehensive safety audit of every piece of equipment we have. And from now on, when workers raise concerns, we address them immediately. No dilas, no excuses. As he hung up, Morrison realized that sometimes the hardest lessons come from being called out by someone who refuses to accept excuses or tolerate dishonesty. Judge Judy had seen through their rationalizations in minutes, and her blunt assessment had forced him to confront an uncomfortable truth about how the company had been operating. Meanwhile, Marcus Thompson arrived home to find his family waiting anxiously. When he told them the news, his teenage daughter hugged him tightly. I knew you were right, Dad. I knew they couldn't get away with it. They almost did, Marcus admitted. But we stood up for what was right and people listened. That evening, as news of the Court of Inquiry's findings spread through the local labor community, it sparked conversations in break rooms and union halls across the region. Workers shared the story, took courage from it, and felt emboldened to speak up about their own concerns. Employers, meanwhile, received a clear message. Retaliation against workers who raised legitimate concerns would not be tolerated. Judge Judy, back in her hotel room, reviewed her notes from the case one final time before filing them away. She had seen countless variations of this scenario over her career. Employers trying to silence inconvenient voices, workers afraid to speak up, documentation that appeared or disappeared as needed. But she had also seen justice prevail time and again when people had the courage to stand up and when the legal system worked as it should. The Court of Inquiry, a mechanism often overlooked in favor of more dramatic legal proceedings, had once again proven its value. It provided a relatively quick, cost-effective way to resolve labor disputes while ensuring that both sides received fair consideration. The inclusion of expert assessors meant that technical issues could be properly evaluated, and the informal atmosphere encouraged truth-telling rather than legal posturing as she prepared for bed. Judge Judy reflected on why she continued this work well into her 70s. The answer was simple. Every case represented someone's life, livelihood, and dignity. Marcus Thompson wasn't just a case number or a legal dispute. He was a person who had worked hard, played by the rules, and deserved justice when those rules were violated. The next morning, Marcus Thompson walked through the gates of Riverside Manufacturing for the first time in months. His co-workers greeted him with handshakes, pats on the back, and genuine smiles. The new equipment had been properly repaired and certified safe. Management seemed more attentive to concerns. Something had shifted.